If you aren't humble, whatever empathy you claim is false and probably results from some arrogance or the desire to control. But true empathy is rooted in humility and the understanding that there are many people with as much to contribute in life as you. It's important to understand that people bring you information just to keep you informed, but it's up to people to do something with this information. You know, you can't just be assimilating information and be listening to the spy novel version of reality and thinking, oh, geez, it's all very covert and intriguing. It's about sharing information and motivating people into action on their own turf, you know, motivating people to stand up for their own freedom all around the world. And we really are coming down to the wire, ladies and gentlemen. And what's really going on here? Because nothing is what we're being told. I mean, that's a given, but what is really going on here? Is this all there is? There's got to be something more to this, and is everything that I've been told true? And how we got here is really a very interesting question to ponder. How we got here as far as the control system goes is, of course, someone had an idea, put it into motion, and here we are. But when you look at the control system and you look at what we've really done since the Industrial Revolution, if you will, it's really quite miraculous. It really is. Even when you look at what we've done in the last 30 or 40 years, technology has simply snowballed. Some of the technology we're using now is stuff that was never dreamt of when I was a child. It was all science fiction when I was a child. This was stuff out of Flash Gordon and bizarre comic books, but even Flash Gordon and some of the bizarre comic books didn't have the stuff that we've got now. It's really come out of nowhere, and it's snowballed to such an extreme. You really have to wonder where it all comes from. Many people have been asking this question, and it's so difficult to find where it comes from because of the mishmash of information that's out there for us to consume. The most effective way to hide a real conspiracy is to create a conspiracy culture around it, to make everything look like a conspiracy, and to get everybody questioning anything. And when you do find a real truth, or if a real truth does get exposed, to embellish it to the point that it becomes unbelievable. So it just becomes another conspiracy theory with all the other conspiracy theories. And if you get a few people penning these ideas and putting them out there, or here's this ancient document we found, and here's this ancient book that was printed and says all this stuff, and you really don't know. All you know is that what people have said it is. They've said what that document is. They've said when that book was printed, but we don't really know. It could have just been put out there with a date on it. We just don't know. We don't know what's been done to lead us astray, and how many red herrings have been created, and how effective the mechanism has been in creating these red herrings. Although, looking at the conspiracy culture today, I'd say it's been a pretty effective method they've used. But the point is, what I'm saying here is you can't really date a lot of the information that we believe we can date, because all that really can be confirmed is that which exists within living memory. That's what we've got. We don't really have any idea where we are, where we come from, or what's really going on here at all. And when you look at the growth of technology in the last 100 years, it really is quite amazing that we've managed to achieve what we've achieved, which again begs the question, where did it all come from? Where did technology come from? How did we come up with this stuff to begin with? Not to mention what we've got now, which is absolutely through the roof. Like I said, it's just snowballed in the last 30 to 40, 50 years. I mean, since the invention of television, it's just gone through the roof. And television is, of course, what's helped it go through the roof. Television and movies, you know, predictive programming, all the futuristic stuff that they've been showing us for so long, just preparing us for this as a natural progression, but we never ask where it comes from. All this futuristic stuff. How do we come up with this stuff? If you were sitting there in a lab, would you come up with any of this stuff? That's the question, folks. Where did it come from? And people will hear that and they'll go, oh, well, it was the scientists. It was all the smart people. I'm not smart enough to do it. It was the smart guys. Really? Is that what you think? It was the smart people who just came up with all this stuff because they're just so smart? That's an interesting concept. Some of the ancient artifacts and monuments and things that are lying all over the earth, some of the round stone balls that you find through Costa Rica, you know, the myriad of monuments you find all over the place through Peru and in Egypt and all sorts of places. None of these can be created through the technology that we've got now. None of them were created via any method that we know of. All these old monuments, stuff that we call ancient, are they really as ancient as what we think they are? See, it's so difficult to get any real handle on history because there's been so much effort undertaken to destroy history. And really, that's what we're seeing now in the Middle East. I mean, why do you think they wage all these wars in the Middle East? It's because it's the cradle of civilization. And they're just destroying history all over the Middle East. They're destroying all the ancient artifacts they can, all the ancient cities they can, all the ancient structures that they can, because the stuff that's there in the Middle East that they're bombing in Syria, places like Aleppo and Palmyra, these are far older than the places that you find in Europe. I mean, remember when they went into Iraq, one of the first things that the Allies did when they went into Iraq in the Gulf War was they looted the Baghdad Museum. And a lot of the artifacts from the Baghdad Museum were actually found scattered around the side of the road in certain back areas in the United States. All smashed to pieces, of course, but I remember some of these things even made the news, the fact that they were found. So they went in there specifically to destroy the history, to locate all the ancient artifacts that indicated there was any history, and just take them and destroy them. Many of these things were priceless, and they didn't even sell them. They didn't sell them on the black market or anything. They just took them to destroy them. The question is why? Over the ages, there's been so many groups that have destroyed so much stuff. I mean, the burning of the Alexandrian Library, for example, which was burnt by one or two, possibly even three groups of people, burnt by the Christians, burnt by the Arabs, burnt by anybody who wanted to burn it. The scrolls in the Alexandrian Library powered the baths. They heated the baths in the Temple of Alexandria for 18 months. That's how many scrolls there were. Papyrus scrolls they simply burnt to heat the baths. You look at ancient Egyptian civilization, it seems to have sprung full-blown into being right from day one. That all seems perfectly normal. Look at Chinese civilization. That's always been an incredibly advanced civilization and always very hidden, and we don't know anything about where that came from because many Chinese emperors took it upon themselves to destroy all the history books that existed before them because they decided they would be the beginning of history and history should start with them and there should be no one before them. So they destroyed all of the ancient scrolls that existed before they were born, before they took rulership, so their history would start there. And I think a couple of emperors actually did that in China. So it's pointless looking there for any information. We may have got something from the Mayans, but the Spanish did a great job of destroying all of their information. We do have one or two codexes left, but people simply can't translate them properly. Of course, there's a rich history to be found in Europe, but God knows what it is, because Europe has been a war zone since recorded history even started. So it's very difficult to know what happened there, because there's been so many cultures come and go, and so many armies march across the land, and so much destroyed across Europe. And of course, as in the case with any good battle, history is written by the winners. You know, George Orwell once said, "Who controls the past controls the future, and who controls the present controls the past." Perhaps there's a clue there. And if you wanted to hide history, how hard would it be? How long would it take to hide history from the entire human race? And the answer is it would take one generation. One generation to completely re-educate people into what actually happened. All you have to do is distract the generation that exists now and then teach the children something completely different. And when you look at television, you look at modern society, you look at how distracted we've all become and what's been done to our children, there it is. You can see how very easily they could hide history from us. I mean, we have history books, but we don't even know how true most of them are. And let's face it, most people don't even read books anymore. Most people are in a situation where all the history they know is what they got from television. In fact, most of all information that people know about anything today, they got from television. And that's why it becomes very dangerous when people start putting stuff out there and saying this is, and create an argument around it. Because all it really does is tie people up in infighting and argument, and in such an environment, it becomes impossible to get any real focus on the root core of the problem, which is the system itself. The real problem is the fact that this information has been hidden to begin with. So really you've got to look at what the mechanism is that has hidden this information, because in attempting to answer the questions at this stage, all anyone can do is speculate. So see, when you really step back and look at all this and you realize that this is how it's been done, and this hiding of history has been an integral part of creating this conspiracy culture in order to hide the real conspiracy that you're living in a people farm whatever form it takes, we don't know, but you're living in a people farm that is managed via a system of debt slavery, whereby all the inhabitants are forced to strip mine the earth around them in order to collect the paper they need to pay to be alive. And most people know something's terribly wrong. I mean, that's why they go down the rabbit hole to begin with, but they never really look at the system that holds it all together, which is the money system. And again, many people know the financial system's all corrupt. They know about fiat currency, fractional reserve banking, how it all works, blah, 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 but they never really question the fact that even without the fiat part of the currency, just the mere fact that they have to pay to be alive to begin with, this is a real problem. This is what creates the whole mechanism to begin with. It's the catalyst, it's the glue that holds the whole thing together. And money is something that people simply take for granted, just the fact that it's there. They'd be happy if it wasn't a fiat system, but they still believe that they need money. And once it's imposed in people's thinking, it's very, very difficult to get it out of their thinking. And really, this hiding of history has helped create this situation. As I said, you wouldn't have this conspiracy culture now if it wasn't so difficult to find out what's going on. You know, and you can't really make it really difficult, this difficult to find out what's going on, as difficult as what it is, without hiding history. And that's what they've done. And all you've got to really do is go and travel around the world and look at stuff to see the truth of this. I mean, nothing is what they tell us it is. None of it makes sense. Nothing that they tell us makes sense. None of the timelines make sense. I mean, everything we've been told is a lie, so you have to question this as well. But as I often say, folks, belief is the enemy of knowledge. And at the moment, all each researcher has, including myself, is what information we have had access to and what we've been able to make of it. But there is so much information out there to consume, and nobody knows really where it comes from or who wrote it or which stuff is reliable. All we can do is guess and use our intuition and make the best estimates we can. Until we admit this and realize this is what we're dealing with, and realize that nobody really knows and that the biggest obstacle to us ever knowing is our lack of freedom, then we're not going to get anywhere. What we need, folks, is freedom. The fact that we're not free enough to know. We've got all these questions, and the questions exist because they are supposed to exist. Because that's what keeps us arguing. That's what keeps us looking, digging under rocks, looking under holes, wondering what's going on, and never really paying attention to our surroundings. And you really, folks, when you look at this whole mess that we're in, the fact that history has been hidden from us and the fact that this entire conspiracy culture has been allowed to grow, you've got to ask yourself why, what it's all about. So many different scenarios, so many different conspiracy theories, so many different groups, so much of a mishmash of infighting right now, because they need that now. They need that division. They need that distraction. They don't want people paying attention to what is happening around them.
Please hit the red color subscribe button and share the video to spread the word. Also, watch our another video to get inspired.